Hey everybody, how's it going? Drew Creel here. Welcome to Shred Sessions. This is episode 5. I have an amazingly talented drummer joining me today. He plays in the band Knoll, Toxic Culture, and Torsion. So welcome, Jack Anderson.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. This is awesome.
So I wanted to talk about how we met, man, because it was kind of a strange and cool thing. Like, I was at the Knocked Loose show and I was wearing a Knoll shirt. And like several people came up to me and were like, "Oh, dude, Knoll is so sick. I love your shirt." Like, I was like, "Thanks." And then you came up to me and was like, "I play drums in Knoll." And I was just like, "What?" Like, because I hadn't met you. I didn't even know what you guys really looked like, except for maybe Jamie, the vocalist.
Right, yeah.
Because you guys are always enshrouded in darkness when you play. So to actually meet you in person was really cool, man. So
yeah, it was really cool to meet you too. I was at that show with my wife and her name's Casey, and Casey's sister Cameron.
Shout out Casey.
Shout out to her. And we were just walking through the crowd and I saw your shirt and I talked to Casey thinking like, man, I really want to go up and say something because that's just too cool to see that, you know, like at a show with such cool bands playing and seeing my band, like, I'm just gonna go talk to him.
Yeah, no, that was really, I'm so glad you did, man, because it's like fate, and now we're recording a podcast together.
Yeah, truly.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I had listened to As Spoken, the new record, and I liked the record so much, and I like the aesthetic of everything, like the turn of the century kind of aesthetic that you guys have going on, and I was like, this merch is really cool. I'm gonna buy a couple shirts, and so I got this one and the one the Dolly Parton shirt. And it was just, yeah, it was something that I was like, finally I heard a record that I was like stoked about. And then I was like, these guys live in Tennessee. Like, this is crazy. So things are full circle. Another thing that's really weird is you went to the Webb School, which is where I taught guitar at for 4 years.
Yes.
So that's amazing. So you live in Murfreesboro then?
Now I live in Murfreesboro,
okay.
Yes. I went to Webb, and I went to UT Chattanooga for a semester and then had to move back home, and then I went to MTSU, and I ended up renting a house right next to campus just for the ease of going to class and everything, and I just still live there.
But you grew up in Bell Buckle, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I feel that Webb, credit where it's due to Webb, it's a very good school to be at as far as creativity is concerned, I would say. Like, I think they really give you a lot of room to pursue any kind of creative art medium you can imagine. Like, for me, I was wanting to play some loud drums. You know, my brother Gray and I had already been jamming a lot. You know, we started playing music together when we were very young. We were, I think, 9 and 10 years old. And we, at that point, when we were at Webb together, we were getting more into, like, harder rock and metal and stuff. Yeah. And they would have like an after school like activity period kind of thing where you can just do whatever you want. Yeah. And there was like 8 people that would just go to this band room, and they'd have a drum set and a bunch of amps and everything. We just figure out how to get like a 4-piece band together. And it was just so cool to have that opportunity. Like, while I have to be at school, I can do that. Yeah,
that's amazing. No, Webb is really open to that kind of thing, and they embraced me like fully when I worked there. Like, with the programs that I wanted to do, I kind of more or less had like a rock band program for my middle school classes. So just like getting kids to play like ukulele and guitar. I had an electric kit there, bass guitar, and like before I knew it, there was like 15 little guitar players, like running around there. So
that's
I definitely
cool.
miss that place a lot, but I mean, the path that I'm on now is I'm pretty content with, writing my own music and having this show and doing the YouTube thing. But Webb is definitely a special place in my heart, man.
Yeah.
And did you know one of the guitar players from Diarrhea Planet went to Webb as well?
Yeah, Emmett, right?
Yeah, that's who it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think I've ever really even met him or spoken to him. Yeah. But I still tell people that he went there because, it's such a small school, and the odds are pretty low that something like that would come from there.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing, man. So what made you want to play drums, like as a kid?
I think in retrospect, I approach instruments just in a very percussive, rhythmic way. I started on guitar before I started on drums when I was like I was 9. I feel that I didn't spend a whole lot of time really trying to nail down like music theory, and like I was a little lazy about learning where the notes are and things like that. But I would just spend a lot of time just trying to write kind of catchy licks or like little like pentatonic solo stretches that are just like catchy and fun to play, you know.
And your older brother Gray played guitar too, or still plays guitar.
Yeah.
So were you just like, I want to play guitar like my brother kind of
Pretty
thing?
much. It always seemed to come a little more easily to him, like his just being able to form different chords and moving around and kind of just exploring different dimensions of the guitar.
Yeah.
I think Gray, you know, has had a much easier time with that. But anyway, so, you know, I was playing guitar and I was enjoying it. And I just started really wanting to play drums at some point when I was younger. And we got into Guitar Hero, and we had Guitar Hero Metallica, and I got the drum set controller that you can use, and you can have double kick pedals, and if you're playing it on expert, you know, it's it's like really hard, you know. So that was a really, like, I got a drum set when I was 15, and I could mechanically produce sounds right off the bat, which helped a lot.
You just pulled,
you know what I mean?
What you were doing from Guitar Hero right onto the real drum kit, basically.
Pretty much.
Because it's similar, right?
Yeah, I will say I didn't get right into like death metal style drumming right away. Like my brother and I would play in bands together, or it wasn't really even a band, but we would be like us and maybe a friend playing bass, and it would just be real strange, kind of basic. Like, sort of, my brother's really into White Stripes at the time, and Raconteurs, like Jack White bands.
Heck yeah.
And we were kind of trying to play stuff sort of like that. And it was a lot of fun, but you know, things have certainly come a long way since then. But that's when I was 15. When
the journey began.
Yeah.
Right away, were you wanting to play like heavier music, like after the White Stripes? Were you just like, how do we make this heavier? Like, who were you listening to during that time?
At that time in middle school, I was listening to a lot of, you know, I loved Metallica. So I was learning how to play, you know, different Metallica drumming parts. You know, I was practicing Master of Puppets and like trying to play Battery and difficult things like that. I was listening to a lot of Disturbed at the time.
Yeah, dude.
I liked just really aggressive, masculine sounding, beefy kind of nu metal stuff like Korn and Disturbed. And I think I got into Tool well before that, I'm pretty sure. But Tool I still really like Tool, and that's been a sort of a grounding sort of influence for me. Like, it's a little bit more thoughtful and interesting.
Yeah, it's
drumming.
It's not necessarily just heavy all the time, like with Tool. It's more intricate and nuanced. And I mean, Danny Carey's one of the great drummers of our time. And what I love about him is he's so influenced by like the prog and fusion drummers of like the 70s and 80s, and like he brings that to the table with Tool.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah, he's just remarkable, man. And I think he's actually going out and playing with Steve Vai, and basically they're doing a King Crimson tour.
Oh, really?
But Danny Carey from Tool will be playing the drums.
Whoa!
In place of like normally it was Bill Bruford. Yeah. Anyway, just a little side quest there.
Yeah. Shout out Danny Carey.
Yeah, he rules.
He was, you know, at that time when I was like in middle school and listening to things like Disturbed and Metallica and Korn, that was just as an example of somebody that was like providing that sort of indulgent metal that I was wanting at the time, but also sort of introducing some more interesting kind of delicate, textured kind of stuff, you know, and I'm grateful for that band, you know, for that reason among other reasons. But after that, I'm wearing a Converge shirt. That was the first, I would consider like the first extreme metal band I ever got into, and that credit is due to my brother Gray. He got into Converge at least 2 or 3 years before I started really listening to them, and I remember him saying, "Jack, you need to listen to Converge. It is so heavy. The drumming is so cool. Everything about it is awesome. Yeah. And I was legitimately one of those people that thought, like, the screaming is a little unnecessary. Like, I feel like it's detracting from it, you know?
Like, I like the disturbed vocals.
Yeah, you know, like, it's a little more palatable. But, yeah, I feel like I just was exposed to that so many times that eventually it's like I just stopped getting stressed when I would hear it, and I was able to actually listen to it and appreciate it. I was like, damn, this is really heavy and catchy and like punchy, and also there's other interesting things happening.
Oh, yeah,
and,
man.
You know, like it's like, I don't know. I guess there's some sort of thing about me getting into all that kind of metal where I was able to, it's hard to explain, but I was able to appreciate it like in a more
maybe like kind of visceral way, or
appreciating it for more than just the like angry madness kind of feeling of it, and more of like, you know, exploring other emotions and other kinds of instrumentality, like different kinds of playing music, literally, you know. It's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah.
But
no, Converge is like a really extreme and abrasive, like hardcore punk metal band. You know, I guess you'd call them metalcore maybe, but they're kind of their own thing. But their music does have a lot of nuance. You know, there's clean guitar parts, there's builds, and there's fast songs, there's slower songs. You know, there's clean vocals in there too. So they do a little bit of everything, man, and they have such a deep catalog too. But was there a particular record that you guys were jamming on at the time from Converge?
Jane Doe.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the one for me was Dark Horse, or it's the one that has Axe to Fall on it.
Yeah.
It's like a few releases later than that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mainly just listened to that song off of that album, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, legend. And now like Kurt Ballou produces like all the great bands in the scene now. I feel like he's, you know, I think he just did the new Nails record.
I've heard that the new Nails is awesome.
Yeah, and I think maybe he did the old Nails stuff too. I'm not sure. I'm no expert at all of that stuff, but I try to stay up with it, you know.
Yeah, Jamie has sort of like, you know, he's I don't think we haven't like hired him to do anything, but they've talked about, I think we've maybe commissioned some like visual art from him before.
That's amazing, dude.
But yeah, Jamie's like on a kind of a friendly basis with him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is cool.
So, dude, you play in 3 metal bands. How do you keep up with that? Like,
well, I think what I do that a lot of other musicians don't do, and I feel like I'm in sort of an unusual position where I focus on drums just like 90% of the time, and I feel
it's become your life.
It really has become my life. Yeah, and
you are the drums.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for other people and bands I'm in, such as Jamie and Gray and Ethan. I'm grateful to them because they do a lot of work, you know, booking shows and emailing people and making sure things are going the way that they should. I feel like I'm more of like the blue collar guy. Like I'm a good van driver, you know, like I'm the guy for that in all the bands that I'm in. And, you know, I am just always busy loading in and loading out. And, I don't know. And just I spend a lot of time warming up before every single show I play because I really think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
You know? And that's sort of a time consuming thing.
So you feel like you can rely on the other guys to do like the promotional booking, scheduling releases, and they can do that and you can focus on the drumming.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it feels. I mean, I've booked shows before, and I help with other things, of course, but I think I just really love the position that I'm in and the bands that I'm in because I just want to get better and better and have every show sound as good as it possibly can and have every release sound as good as it possibly can. And just having the ability to spend so much time practicing and learning new songs and doing all this stuff is I think it's just something I'm really grateful for, you know?
Yeah, I was watching your Instagram today, man, like your story. You're like playing like bleed patterns with your feet.
Yeah, I work on bleed a lot because it's very, you know, it's a polyrhythm, obviously. So your posture is not going to be exactly the same every beat, you know, because your hands are going to be falling in with your feet at different times and positions, obviously.
Yeah,
so
when that comes together, that rhythm comes together, your upper body's doing something different from your lower body.
Exactly.
And that has a certain feeling to it.
Yeah, and it's forcing you to like be able to be a little bit more flexible and sort of adaptive to like, oh, my kick pedal feels too far away, or oh, the ride cymbal feels too far away. You have to be able to think about more than one problem at once working on a song like that. And it just is so, it's a badass song also. So it's just like, man, I can just play this all day, you know? Like, I love finding patterns and songs and things that are very indulgent, but also are serving a purpose as far as me improving, you know?
Yeah, well, it sounded really tight, what you were doing. Like, I was like, he's playing bleed. He's doing it.
It is probably a good 15 BPM slower than the real song. It's like, and I was playing a little slower, but like, for me at least, that's hard enough.
Hey, we can't all be God, man.
No Thomas Hawkes, man. Yeah, he's an animal.
Yeah,
you know?
He's phenomenal. A huge inspiration to so many drummers that I've played with, you know.
Oh, me too.
So.
Oh yeah, that might be. It's a close tie between, I would say, Meshuggah and Gojira for, like, I don't know if I would say my favorite band or most influential band, but somewhere in that area. I hold Meshuggah. I hold both of those bands very close to my heart.
They're both amazing. Are there any other drummers that have influenced how you play?
Gene Hoglan is a drummer that has influenced how I play. He has a very kind of old school thrashy kind of feel a lot of the time, but there's also some really bizarre, you know, different unexpected things happening with his playing, some like metric modulation or some crazy fill with doubles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, this is definitely not like a typical kind of thrashy death metal drummer.
Yeah,
like
a lot of that death stuff is pretty progressive, man.
Yeah.
Like really, you know, dual ride cymbals and, like you said, doubles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Taking a lot of, you know, kind of creative leaps of faith, I guess, you know, like that's something that I really admire in a drummer is, you know, doing something that's very unconventional, but it feels right to them. And then once the song is released, it just clicks with everybody, and it's just like a very rewarding process. You know what I mean?
Definitely, man. To me, the drummer in a metal band is like the hardest working member. So it's cool to meet a guy that's like just that's all you do. Like you're so focused on drums.
Yeah.
And I feel like today in the music world, we're almost like forced to have to worry about all these other things. Like social media and I don't know, man, like artwork. And I mean, like artwork's always been kind of a thing, but I just think having like a constant presence online is like how you grow your following as a musician. It's how you get work and stuff like that. It's how you connect with other people. And so if you like don't post anything for a while, I feel like people kind of forget about you. So
like,
there's
it must not be that important.
Yeah, it's like there's like this unnecessary pressure when really what we should be doing is being alone with our instrument or being with a couple other musicians, like practicing and writing more material, you know, and really like delving into the art. But I think it's a balance, man. I think there's a balance, and I can say like throughout my life, there's been seasons of just 8 hours a day practice or 6 hours a day or something like that. And then I'll come out of that and I'll actually start creating songs and improvising more and actually like doing more writing, you know. So it kind of comes in waves, and I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but it's cool that you're focused on the craft of drumming and you're playing in 3 bands, so you have a massive output. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, you know. I recently got a piece of drum equipment called a Yamaha EAD-10.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with those?
Yeah, there's this Facebook group called like Metal Drummers, Extreme Metal Drummers. I don't know. There's like 50,000 people in this group. It's crazy. It's like tons of drummers and fans of drummers. And that piece of equipment has been talked about a lot in that group. A lot of people use that. So how do you like it?
Oh, I mean, it feels like, not to be dramatic, but it really feels like a missing puzzle piece for me. Man, I want to step up my game with my practice, and I want to like put out more content that sounds nice and like is communicating what I'm trying to do very effectively. And I didn't even realize this until after I got it, that you can use it for shows. You can output it directly into a PA. So your kicks, like on really fast blast beats or something, you can hear the kick, 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 you can hear some clicks.
So you can use it as a trigger, basically?
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
So it's just been so great for me. It's been amazing.
So describe what it is for people who don't know what an EAD-10 is.
Yeah, totally. So it is composed mainly of two different things. You have a trigger that you sort of position under your kick drum and you tighten it on, and it has a trigger mechanism on the bottom of it that's touching the batter head of the kick drum. And then it also has microphones built into the top, and the microphones are able to take in everything else on your kit, excluding the kick drum. And that component, the whole thing, is wired to like a module with different, knobs and things. And you can plug headphones into it. So you're basically it's like you're in a recording booth.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of simulating that.
Which is helpful for when you're practicing too, so you can actually hear your kicks and the music that you're practicing along with in a nice, balanced way. At least that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, because like a lot of things in drumming, one reason that's very awesome is that a lot of drumming is very exhausting to practice, because especially if you're trying to produce it at a very high volume, like if you're trying to work on kicks, and you can't hear them very well, but you're playing, if it were mic'd, it would sound right. But to your ears sitting behind the kit, it doesn't sound the way it should,
Right.
So I know I'm kind of over-explaining that. But.
I play a little bit of drums too, and in the room next door, I had like a little drum studio set up. And if you just put your earbuds in and they're not plugged into anything, it really have a hard time hearing your kick and snare over the music. So what I did is ended up miking up the whole kit, because I did some recording and stuff in there. That piece of gear, it's like a couple $100. You don't need to buy like 10 microphones and like a console and like everything, right? Like,
well, it is a little bit expensive.
Is it more than that? Is it like $1,000?
New, I think it's $600.
Okay, so it's
Knoll basically bought it for me.
Nice.
Yeah, which is just so, I don't know. There's been something that I want to mention at some point today, is that there's been a lot of luck factor for the amount of success that I've had. I'm not some famous musician by any means, but I am really grateful for the success that I have right now, and I didn't think I would ever get to be doing what I'm doing now. And a lot of that is just, you have to, you can think about it like you just keep buying lottery tickets, and as long as you keep buying them, you have a chance of winning. Like having people kind of give you a chance to like, okay, you want to work hard? Like, we'll let you work hard and see what you can do.
Yeah. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just being prepared for things, and like when the opportunity presents itself, just being ready to dive in. And like, you've done that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, I've only seen you drum in videos. I haven't made it to a Knoll show yet. As much as I'd like to see you guys play live. But your drumming is nuts, man.
Thank you.
It's so, it's abrasive, it's physical, it's some of the best extreme metal drumming that I think I've seen recently.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
Wow. Well, let's talk about Knoll then, man. When did you start playing in Knoll?
Oh, make sure I have the date right. I joined, it was the same year the pandemic started, so 2020?
Yeah, 2020, man.
Yeah. They are from Memphis originally, and they moved to Murfreesboro to attend MTSU, and they needed a live drummer because they had just recorded their first album, Interstice, and Jamie, the singer, actually drummed on that album.
Yeah.
He's a very skilled drummer. He plays really fast and really hard, and he's a very skilled drummer. And,
and they were like 17, 18 years old when those guys made that?
Yeah.
And how old are you?
I'm 27.
So a little bit older than the other cats in the band, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. At the time, I was the oldest in the band. I think I'm, I was average of 3 to 4 years older than everybody else.
So they moved to Murfreesboro, and then they needed a live drummer, and so did you just play a couple shows with them, or?
No, they asked, they were friendly with Bled to Submission, who's not active anymore, unfortunately, but they asked them just, hey, do you guys know anybody that like kind of plays blast beats and might be interested in, joining our band and everything? And they recommended me, which was just really awesome. And I got a message from Knoll just out of the blue one day, and they sent me Interstice, and they asked me if I'd be interested in like meeting them and maybe joining. And I listened to it, and it really did kind of exceed any expectations that I had for it. It's like, oh, okay, so it's just gonna be some local band, I'll listen to it,
Yeah.
But it ended up being like, whoa, there's a lot of really freaky stuff going on, and it's got the badass kind of motorcycle factor. You know what I mean? It's just very, there's a lot going on here.
There is a lot going on. How would you describe Knoll to someone who's never heard them before, if you could? I would describe Knoll as someone who's just never heard Knoll before at all. Yeah.
Who is like familiar with metal at all?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a difficult question.
You can use like genre tags if you want to.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would consider them death metal, and we have moments that feel more grindcore. We have a lot more, especially with our last 2 albums, it feels a lot more black metal.
Yeah,
I would say. But a lot of it is just in this really dissonant kind of experimental realm that feels brand new to me, especially with the newest album, As Spoken. It has sort of a gothic theatrical kind of vibe going on.
Yeah.
And it's hard to compare that. I mean, I sometimes I get that feeling a little bit from like Imperial Triumphant or the band Thanafaxeth. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all.
Yeah. So similar to, you said, Thanafaxeth and who else?
Imperial Triumphant. Sometimes touches on some similar kind of moods, I suppose. We take a lot of influence from Portal, for sure. Jamie is the biggest Portal fan that there is, I think.
Sick. I don't even know who that is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you should check them
now.
out. They're really, really cool. Yeah.
Sweet.
It's like kind of swirling blast beat despair and like a lot of kind of, it's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
I wish Jamie were here to explain it.
Yeah. Well,
he's...
I listened to a couple interviews with him, and he kind of described it as negative art or subtractive art. And, he uses the term funeral grind too. Yes. I don't know if that's on like one of y'all's t-shirts. Like Tennessee funeral grind or something. Maybe I'm making that up.
No, you're not making that up at all.
Yeah, okay.
You're not making that. We're like adopting that.
Yeah.
Where we have been adopting that.
But the aesthetic of the band is really unique, and it's like stuff that harkens from the Gilded Age. If you've ever been to the Vanderbilt mansion, like the materials and the styling of that building, like sort of represent the sound of Knoll in a way. And like when I listen to the record As Spoken, it's almost like you guys are conjuring like ghosts, from another time and letting them kind of like speak through the band. It's really amazing. It's some of the coolest extreme music that I've come across recently. That's why I wanted to talk to you. But
thank you.
Yeah.
An inspiration for that aesthetic, because that is an intentional aesthetic.
Yeah. It's very well done, man.
Thank you. But we feel that era of history that occurred before the Industrial Revolution was a time where you had fewer automated products, where the details are exactly the same with everything.
Well, you had artisans making the products.
Exactly. Right. So a part of what Knoll is about is sort of the death of that, and therefore in large, it's the death, like a large decline in sort of the presence of art in the world.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, that's something that I notice a lot. Like, even if you look at a McDonald's building from 20 years ago, there's like happy, fun things inside, and then you go to McDonald's today and it looks like an airport or something. It looks like a government communist building or something. No offense to communists, but
yeah, it's a little soulless.
Yeah, there's no soul, and I think in general, if you drive across the Midwest in the United States, I'm from Chicago, so I'm from the Midwest. It's really dreary, man. There's a huge absence of like beautiful architecture and things that would make you inspired to do something beautiful in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like you see a beautiful like cathedral or even like a well-designed office building or something, and it makes you aspire to something. But when there's a lack of visual representation in the world, I feel like people sort of block that out of their mind, and then they don't even, after a couple generations, they don't even have the language to describe what that is anymore. And so there's like what you're saying, it's like this lost period of time it's a lost period of beauty.
That's so well said.
I
very
try,
well
man.
said. Seriously, yeah.
It's stuff I think about a lot, man. Like why do we not have good architecture, or why does all of our architecture like these concrete blocks? Like why? Yeah. Like what's up with that? Like I know it's expensive and inflation is a thing now, but dude, if you go like the Chrysler building in New York, like each element in that building, it was like marble from Africa and like acacia wood for this trim, for the molding around the, like you should watch the Imperial Triumphant tour of the Chrysler building. It's freaking awesome. But they talk about that.
Oh yeah, I've seen at least one like 15-minute interview with them where they do talk about that.
Yeah, I love those guys. What they're doing is really amazing as well. Well, dude, tell us about As Spoken, the most recent record, and how the drumming sessions went.
Recording it?
For that, yeah. What was the recording like?
Man, that was a very difficult recording. The songs were, as far as technical skill difficulty is concerned, it was much higher, I would say, than other things that we had written. Just higher tempo for longer periods of time, and just like fills that are all over the place, and longer songs, more to memorize, things like that. But as far as recording the songs went, Jamie and I basically, it felt like we were tag team fighting it. Almost not fighting each other, but just like battling to get good takes of these songs.
So you guys were like back to back, like I'm gonna take a stab at this song, and
like a section that's really I recorded, I think, like maybe 60% of the songs pretty much all on my own, and then maybe I might get tired and then Jamie would come in and help. And then I think Jamie was responsible for 40% of the other songs, and then I might come in and help him. And then there was maybe one or two songs where it was just really hard for both of us, and we would just have to take turns. Yeah,
and if you listen to any track on the record, you'll kind of understand what Jack is talking about here, like just the physicality that's involved with playing this music. So
something I will say is that since that time, I've spent a lot of time practicing how to drum more efficiently, like, produce the same sounds with less effort.
Yeah.
And, I had to do that just to be able to play the songs live.
Yeah.
And when we first started playing those songs live, they were, to me especially, noticeably slower than the album. It would be a good 10 or 15 BPM slower. And it's just been a constant battle getting them up to speed, and it's really awesome that they are now. Like everything Knoll plays live now is at least as fast as the album. And that's been such a earlier in the Knoll days, it would be very defeating feeling to finish a set and it's exhausting and I'm just drenched in sweat and we're about to have to drive 8 hours and I just couldn't play the songs fast enough.
Yeah.
Very large motivating factor to get better and just figure out how to hold the sticks better and work on my posture and like where are my feet actually hitting the pedals? Like what am I doing to what's making it harder? What's making it easier,
That's a big part of extreme metal drumming is getting your technique so that you can play like above 200 or whatever the goal is,
Right.
I know in like technical death metal and deathcore, like playing doubles is a big part of like what people do with their feet and stuff like that. And I'm a huge fan of like people that are pushing the boundaries, and I see you guys as one of those bands you're trying to take what's been done in the genre and push it to the next level.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, at least right now, I'm not trying to venture too far into like sort of a deathcore sounding,
of course,
drum. I can appreciate that a lot. Like I'll be in a mood where I love listening to things like that, but I'm not insane about like a really clicky, triggery kind of kick drum sound. You know, maybe like a touch here and there, but I like that style of drumming still. And I like to think that, as far as pushing the boundaries go, I like the idea of bringing that into a more natural medium, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you guys toured as Spoken in Europe, right?
We did. We've toured it twice in Europe.
So talk about the places that you went and what that experience was like.
Very awesome experience, very eye-opening experience, learned a lot of things. We've pretty much been almost everywhere in Western Europe. We haven't been to like Spain or Portugal, but we've been to England and Scotland and Germany, down into Italy. We had one show in Slovakia, which was really strange routing. I think we were playing in like mid-east Germany, and then we had to hop over to play in Slovakia and then come back into Germany. There's just some sort of weird routing thing. There's a lot of different places.
Now, when you're over there, do you have like a van driver that's like familiar with like the area? No, it's just you just like, here's a van, here's a Sprinter, like,
oh yeah, you just jump right in. They'll give you one with the steering wheel on the American side,
which is the correct side. I'm kidding. Like half of the world drives on the other side.
There's been some times where I think it's Belgium that has a really strange traffic law where if you're driving on a main road and then another road is intersecting your road, then they have the right of way. So you have to stop because they're not going to stop.
Oh man.
So
that ain't American.
No, man. Yeah. Like there's a couple things that you got to kind of be aware of, I
feel like there's probably a pretty good learning curve, like to do all of that. Like, so how were you guys reading the signs and like as you're going into different provinces and different countries and things like that?
For the most part, I would say everywhere we've been is English friendly.
Okay. Are the signs in English like in Spain or probably not? Right?
We haven't been there. One country
or Germany.
Germany was very English friendly.
Okay.
I think this could be totally inaccurate, but I had the feeling that English is a little bit more of a common thing to be taught in school.
Yeah.
France was a country that felt a little less like, no hate on France, but it was a little bit.
Oh, there's definitely hate on France now.
Well, France.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It was a place that was a little more difficult to be, as if you're not a French speaking person. A little bit of rudeness from people every now and then, and like not a lot of English signage anywhere.
Yeah.
That was a place where I guess you could say we had some culture shock.
Yeah.
Like people are not necessarily wanting to go out of their way to cater to tourists. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is it's not something that I can really criticize. It's just yeah, I'm not, especially being an American who hasn't spent much time there. It's just really interesting to observe things like that.
Oh, I bet.
And just wonder why exactly that is the way it is.
Yeah. Oh, no. Like, well, dude, compare and contrast touring in the U.S. versus touring in Europe.
One big difference I've noted, for the most part, I would say European audiences are a little bit older.
Okay.
Like, maybe average, like, 25 or 30 to like 50 or 60 years old.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more kind of stand-in watchers as opposed
just
to
taking
like,
it in.
Right, yeah. And I am that kind of person. I'm not much of a mosher. I love like seeing the band and then being right next to the pit. It's like, this is some nice energy.
Yeah.
I enjoy this. But, like for the Knoll shows, we have a lot of stand and watch kind of parts of our set as opposed to like headbanging kind of mosh indulgent stuff. But that's one thing. In America, I feel like there's a lot of like kind of 17 or 18-year-old kids who are like ready to just go
They've
bananas.
got the energy, yeah.
They got no shirt on and they're just like sweaty and they're ready to bounce around.
Everybody above 35 in the U.S. is just watching Netflix at home. Like, they don't go to shows anymore. They retired.
Yeah, someone's live streaming it for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's funny. Interesting, man.
Another big difference is in Europe, I think they definitely go out of their way to be more hospitable to bands. Like
That's
promoters and venues will. Like, I think they seem to be a lot more empathetic to how it is touring, and every single meal is a chore now. And like sometimes you have to like strategically eat a meal so that you're not hungry.
You got a plan
for loading in and sound checking for the next 4 hours.
And so you don't have to take a crap in the middle of the set.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Grotesque.
But that's something that I really appreciate about Europe is that. And there's a lot of places in America that are like that too.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more of a like, you're on your own, kid, kind of thing.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, man. Like, because I did some touring in 2011 and 2012, like a lifetime ago, and I'm hoping to get back into it with the bands that I'm in now. So I like asking people who have been out in the last few years, like what it's like. And but when I was touring, it was like literally every show or every venue that we played at, I don't know if we had our rider written incorrectly or something, but they would just give us Little Caesars pizza. So like by like the fifth show, you've had just garbage, like cardboard pizza with cheese on top.
You cannot eat that every day.
And you're like, my intestines are literally like clogged up, like I can't digest this stuff.
Yeah, I remember having pizza fatigue on tour for sure. Like
pizza fatigue,
that's
man.
a specific kind of feeling. You think at first like, oh, this is like the perfect food. It has lots of carbs. I'm drumming all the time. This is great, but no, it wears on you like psychologically.
It does, man. Yeah, or just eating too much Taco Bell or any kind of fast food. I feel like Chipotle is kind of like a nice balance of like fresher ingredients, and like maybe more humane chicken or something.
Yeah, I think it's a little more ethically sourced. Yeah. I think Taco Bell is probably scraping the bottom of the barrel for most of their ingredients.
Yeah.
I do. Frankly, though, like I do eat at Taco Bell a lot, and Knoll would love to be sponsored by Taco Bell.
Oh, dude,
like we
great.
Like we really love it. Like we find getting rice and beans and a tortilla. It's like it doesn't make us feel that bad. Like physically, like touring.
Get some nice carbs and some energy.
Yeah, some protein
at your disposal. A little protein.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, man. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you guys, when you play live, when Knoll plays live, do you guys play to a click track with like backing tracks or like sound effects or anything of that nature?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, everything is produced live. Yep. We don't have any like pre-recordings that we play. We don't do anything like that.
That's amazing. I watched the set from St. Vitus Bar in New York that you guys played. And there were some like really interesting like ethereal sounds. Is that being triggered by like someone's pedal board or like where is that coming from?
That is Jamie's noise board.
Okay.
Which I encourage listeners to check out. It's like this big. It's very large. It's on a I think you call it a drawing board or a carving board or something.
Oh.
It has like wooden legs and then
Something
like
you would do art on, like an easel.
Sort of, but it's like a really heavy, like wooden, like it weighs like 60 pounds or something.
Yeah.
And he has I don't even know how many different pedals and noise instruments on it. Like he has one noise instrument that's like a spring that's connected to sound producing elements, and he'll be like putting it in his teeth and like attacking it like an animal, and like it's really every set there'll be a couple parts where I'm not playing anything and Jamie is just doing vocals and performing his noise board. I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, this is putting me in such a perfect mood for this set. Just like watching Jamie just be absolutely inhuman and just putting 100% effort into it.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to be a part of.
I think I watched a clip of that, and yeah, he's like channeling something, man. He's cracking through to another dimension.
He
I
really
feel like.
is, man. I feel a similar way with drumming, Like,
Yeah.
I feel like drumming, I'm like kind of tapping into something. Like there's some sort, I'm not really a spiritual person, but something about drumming and music in general, it feels like you're kind of like locked into a different time with people,
Yeah.
But as far as that is concerned, like Knoll, it's like that, but it's a lot more difficult to quantify. It's like an evil dimension that's really difficult to articulate.
Is there a certain guiding philosophy that you subscribe to, like when it comes to drumming, or just in your life in general?
Yeah, there's definitely something I can say about that. I think that drumming can be very analogous with life,
Yeah.
It's if you're trying to get better at drums, at least, like if you're taking it serious, like if that's your passion and you're a drummer, then it requires regular practice. It requires taking care of your body. It requires taking care of your brain. And
there's a holistic approach, I feel like, that's required for playing these extreme styles of music.
Exactly. A holistic.
You're not playing in a bar band where you're like slamming 4 beers before. I mean, maybe you are, I don't know, but
no, I'm not. I'm definitely not.
You have to really keep your health in check if you want to do this like into your later years, if you want to drum when you're 55 or whatever.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you bring that up, because something that I've thought about a lot and I've like kind of discussed with my bandmates a lot is how you can't really call like a piece of music good or bad, or you can't really call like a musician's technical ability good or bad. It really depends on the context, like I don't recommend equating playing really fast or hitting really hard with being good, but if that's what your intention is and that is what serves the music, then I guess you are really, really good. You know what I mean? But
I think when you play at those velocities, it does something to the human spirit. It really, it's a certain energy that you're putting out there. Whereas if you're playing maybe more nuanced music that's more controlled, that's its own energy too, which can be nice. But with metal, it's certainly a more primal style of music that I don't know how to really describe it either, man. It's like you're cutting through all the bullshit and you're getting to like the heart of what it means to be a human, and you have just wooden sticks, your feet, and some plastic heads that you're hitting, and then pieces of circular metal that you're hitting like really hard, and I think there's something powerful about that.
There really is.
Yeah.
That's that's really eloquent. That's very, very much how I feel as well.
Yeah, like one of my favorite drummers, his name is Virgil Donati. Do you know who he is?
I'm not familiar with him.
He's like a prog metal fusion drummer.
Is he like Australian or something? I think he tried out for Dream Theater.
He did. Yeah, he did, and I've been following his work for a long time, since like really 2002 or 2003, when I was getting into music and guitar playing and stuff like that. And he had this band called Planet X, which is an all instrumental like prog band. You guys should check him out if you haven't listened to him, but he has this very holistic approach to playing drums. Like, I don't think he drinks alcohol or anything, and I think he like runs miles like every day, and he's in his 50s now. And I think rather than playing really fast and hard, like what he's trying to do is control time in different ways, where he can, when he's playing like a drum beat, in his brain, he can hear it and perceive it in like 5 different ways. And then he shifts in and out of those 5 different ways while he's playing to, I don't know, an ostinato or a groove or something like that. So that's kind of where he's at in his career or whatever. But I'm inspired by that holistic approach. And I think musicians, like, I don't know, we're often perceived as these like ruffians who just like eat whatever we can, and we just drink beer and we do drugs all the time. But it's really impossible to create art and sustain a career and do that, you know?
Not the art that I'm wanting to make, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, playing shows, you know, especially being on tour, but playing any show, the way I see it is I'm, you know, preparing myself all day to enter this state that's like, you know, connected to trauma in my life, and it's in all kinds of different things. It's, you know, a holistic experience.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do. It almost reminds me of acting a little bit, like acting really violent, angry, negative, emotional things, you know, like from what I understand, I'm not an actor, but I've heard that it's typical for actors to connect to something that's similar to what they are having to portray.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself an angry person, but, you know, I definitely have all kinds of things in my life that elicit a very angry, negative energy from me. And I think being in tap with that and using it, I guess I could just say I'm using that in a way to produce something positive for me, you know?
No, I think that is like, music is the most positive way that you could use those feelings. And I think it's impossible to be a human being today and not feel a little bit angry about the world, you know,
right.
Seeing the things that we see. And now we have access to these things on our phones, and we're constantly being bombarded with visual stimuli that are negative, you know?
Yeah.
So it only makes sense that there's a band like Knoll that's channeling these things.
Yeah.
And trying to create some sort of response to that. Like, you know, that's how I see it.
Like the energy comes into you, and then maybe if you don't let it out, then it's just going to stay in you.
Yeah. So you play drums in another band called Torsion. And would you describe that band as more of like a death metal band?
I would say that they are definitely more of a death metal band than Knoll is, for sure.
Yeah. Who's all in that band with you, and how did that band form?
That band is me and my brother Gray, okay, and our friend Ethan Rose, who is the president of the Murfreesboro punk scene. He is just such an important person to the music scene. He's in several different bands, and he books lots of different shows, and he's been having to go through legal battles to keep his venue and where he lives viable, and he can live there and operate it as a venue. So he just
wow.
Shout out Ethan Rose. Y'all follow Ethan Rose on Instagram or something.
Maybe I'll try to get him on the show if he's interested, you know. It'd be cool to hear, because I want to talk to more promoters, you know, and really I just want to do anything I can to make the metal scene as good as it can be in Nashville and the surrounding areas, so we can support each other better. And that's why I started this podcast. You know, I love talking to other people who like the same kind of music as me, first and foremost, but like also just spreading awareness. So if there's a band that you like that's local, you can check out this podcast and hear what the people have to say, you know, and hear their perspective. So yeah, it'd be great to get Ethan on the show.
Yeah, I think Ethan and Gray would be, you know, Ethan and is his own, he's got his whole thing going on. Yeah, he would be a wonderful guest for sure. But as you were asking me about Torsion, so we basically formed because Gray and I used to be in a band called Knuckle Dragger when I was
I've
younger.
heard of that band. I never saw you guys play live, but I've heard of you. Anyway.
Yeah, we were like kind of hardcore, power violence-y, grindcore, I guess you could say.
Sick.
And we disbanded, but Gray and I didn't have any other bands at the time, and we wanted to keep going with like you and me sort of band, because we've been playing together for so long, and like we like to kind of have a band that we're in to where we can, do our thing. Knuckle Dragger was over, and we just found ourselves gravitating more toward death metal. I guess you could say sort of groovier stuff, as opposed to kind of thrashy headbanger, kind of power violence-y sort of punky feeling. And we just started kind of writing some stuff, and we're looking for a bassist at the same time. And I don't think we had to look for a very long time before Ethan said, I would love to join.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, and man, it's such a great lineup of people for the band. Gray and Ethan and I both, or all three of us, I mean, are all very much on the same page about what we're trying to go for and how the shows feel. It's sort of similar to Knoll in a way that it's like a very kind of evil, dark feel. But I think Torsion is more of an aggressive kind of feel, and it's a little bit more based in this reality as opposed to some sort of Knoll dimension that you're tapping in somewhere else. Torsion feels a lot more right there.
Yeah.
Right there in your face. Like, we took some promo pictures a while ago, and also a lot of our lyrics are about just attacking the people that are making life hard.
Yeah.
Like we have a song called Innards of the Oligarchy.
Uh-huh.
And it feels like we have ski masks, and it feels like we just broke in and we're gonna kill you billionaire bastards, but first we're gonna play some cool songs. That's kind of how it, it's a little more serious than that at the show.
Sure.
But that's sort of how it feels.
These guys are wearing ski masks. There might be some danger here.
There's a danger factor.
Like that.
Yeah, we want people to feel a little scared.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of forces that are controlling the world in the way that it is now, and unfortunately, it's been like that for a long time. And I know I'm being very cryptic right now, but I think certain billionaires certainly have a role in that.
They certainly do.
It's not just it's just the free market doing what it does. And no, there's people pulling some mad strings, making things in their favor and controlling entire economies. The average person, I just feel like, is just kind of screwed, in the grand scheme of things these days. If you
Things are not set up to make it possible for anyone to have the kind of life that they want.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to create a certain lifestyle that I think is like a quality of life that's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like the average person has a pretty low quality of life. I hate to say, and I know that's coming from someone that lives in the United States, the wealthiest country in the world. And yeah, I'm thankful that I live here as opposed to other places. But yeah, I think about that stuff a lot, man. It's a constant grind towards trying to make your life a little bit better for you and your family.
Yeah, it really is. And just not being certain who's steering the ship and where we're going. I was a teacher for several years, and I'm just like, man, how do I help these kids make sense of the world? That was kind of part of my role, especially because I was a dorm parent, so I would talk to kids, and sort of be a parent to them in a small way. Obviously, I'm not their biological parent or anything, but I could give advice when it made sense to give advice. Hopefully, the advice I gave was good, but. Yeah, I listened to the Torsion EP. It's really awesome. It sounds like you used real drums, they're not programmed drums or anything like that. Yeah, pretty raw production.
It's raw. So how did you guys record that?
We recorded that with Dan Emery.
Okay.
Who plays bass and fronts Thetan, and he has his own production or recording business.
Let's do this, man. Talk about what's coming up for you, like with shows. Talk about Torsion shows, Knoll shows, tours. Tell us what's going on the horizon with you, man.
Okay. Well, in the very near future, Knoll is playing a show with Moru, which hopefully your listeners are familiar with Moru after the interview that y'all had. They're playing with Knoll. We're supporting Panopticon, which is a very interesting band. They're like folky black metal. So there'll be sections of just like kind of dark, creepy folk music, and then just some real intense black metal. And like, I haven't listened to them a whole lot yet, but I really like what they're going for. And I'm actually filling in on drums for Moru for that show.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, so that's going to be really challenging. I'm really trying to... I feel like I'm already in pretty good shape, but I'm trying to get in a little better shape to be able to just totally go all in on both sets that night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You're a machine, bro.
Thanks, man. I'm trying to really, push it and just see what I can do.
So where and when is that show?
That's at Dark Matter, and it's in September or October. I don't have the date off the top of my head. That would be a good thing to have handy. But anyway, we have that show on our Instagram, on Knoll's Instagram and Moru's.
Amazing.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Knoll has been writing really heavily for a long time now. And I don't want to get too much into details about that, but just be aware that we've been very busy writing.
Fantastic.
That's been really cool. Knoll has Devastation of the Nation tour in November, and that's
with Morbid Angel?
Yeah, with Morbid Angel and Suffocation. Yeah, that's going to be really crazy.
Dude, Suffocation rules.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that band.
Yeah, man, they are wild. Intense.
Have you seen their Brutal Assault video?
No,
like when they played so Suffocation played at Brutal Assault 2023. It's like one of the best death metal sets that I've seen from start to finish. Like the intensity and the execution of their music. Guitar solos are clean. Like everything about it is just like amazing.
I will definitely watch that.
But you're going to tour with them, so you're going to be watching that every night.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
That's amazing, man. Does that come through Nashville or anywhere close to here?
Yeah, we're playing at Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, heck yeah. I will be there.
Awesome.
And I would love to see the show with Moru, too. That'll be wild.
Yeah, I really recommend that. We're also playing with a band called Primeval Well. And it's just... the whole lineup of bands for that night just has a really interesting kind of atmosphere and energy that I feel like we all sort of share a little bit of the same thing in that regard.
Yeah.
And it's just a really cool lineup that I don't think I've ever really been on. I don't think I've ever been in on any kind of show that feels like how that's going to feel. It's going to be really cool.
Dark Matter's a tiny little venue too, so it's going to be extra special to see that lineup there.
Yeah, it's going to be very
really
intimate.
Cool.
I love playing at Dark Matter.
Me too. Yeah, I've only played there once, but it was awesome. Next week, Mizmor is coming to town. Are you familiar with Mizmor at all?
No.
Black metal band from the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if they're a Portland or a Seattle band, but somewhere out there in Oregon. But I'm a huge fan of Mizmor, and they're playing Dark Matter next week on Tuesday. And I think Soot is opening.
Oh, I've heard
as well.
That.
And so this will be out before that show. So if anybody wants to see a show like really quick after watching this and you're in Nashville, come to that show. So Jack, when is that Dark Matter show with Moru?
That is October 5th.
All right. Lock it in your calendars, people. It's going to be a special night. And it's October, so it'll be even darker time of year to see metal.
It'll be scary, but you should still come.
Yeah. Don't be too scared. So, well, I got just really one more question for you, man. And this might be a two-parter, but if you could be endorsed by any drum or cymbal brand, who would you be endorsed by?
Easy answer, Paiste.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a really cool experience on, I think it was the second Knoll tour ever, and we were in California, and we were having to live in a Walmart parking lot for 2 or 3 days because I think our show was canceled, and that's just where we were. And we're just hanging out there a lot, and we're in the parking lot, and I had a little miniature kind of practice set up. My drum throne, I was sitting there practicing, and a woman pulled up in her car and she was asking me all these questions about drumming, and she's like, "Oh, well, I'm a rep for Paiste Cymbals," and she ended up being, her name is Kelly Paiste.
What?
So she's like,
she's a member of the dynasty.
yeah, I don't think she's the CEO, but she's like very high up in the
Was she
company.
just visiting in the States, or does she live in California?
She lives, it was in Anaheim, California.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure Paiste has a shipping facility in Anaheim or very close to there or something.
Yeah.
Might be their headquarters, I don't recall, but I told her just kind of about how I'm really trying to work really hard with drumming and all these different things. And she gives me artist discounts now, which is not a sponsorship.
Yeah.
But it was a huge success to convince them that I'm really serious about it. Enough for that, at least. And since then, I'm definitely a Paiste Cymbals person. I think they have like just a certain. I think they are a company that has a mystery alloy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so I'm a Paiste guy as well.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've owned like the Dark Energy line. I had several of those. And right now I've got a bunch of 2002 stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a certain alloy. They just have a different process from like Turkish cymbal makers like Zildjian and Sabian. So their cymbals sound different.
Yeah, I think they sound lasery. Like I
they
detect
cut through a little bit more, I feel like.
They also cut through very
Yeah.
well, I would say. Yeah, I use Paiste signatures. I have a Paiste there. It's a full crash and a reflector crash, and they cut really well. And they just have it sounds like a alien laser gun. There's like a certain frequency in there that's just really like something appealing to me that I don't hear in any other cymbals. And it's just, to me, it's just the perfect combination of like bright but still complex and interesting sounding, and very cutting and very loud and full. And you can like, you know, plink on them like a ride, and they have really nice bells. And yeah, Paistes are awesome.
Yeah, I love them, man. Yeah, so the signature line you feel like would be the one that you would go with?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a little expensive, but you can get them used for sure.
I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Paiste cymbals are like less common in the U.S. for like U.S. drummers. I don't know if that's a misconception.
Are they a Swedish company?
They're made in Switzerland.
Okay.
But in Europe, I feel like they're just a lot more common, like with metal bands and things of that nature. Whereas in Nashville, at least, Knoll cymbals, which are also like, they're a German company, but I feel like everybody's playing Knoll these days, which is cool.
Yeah.
But
Knoll has released, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, some really cool cymbals that remind me a lot of the Paiste crashes I use. They're just like a similar kind of lathing texture and size and everything, and it's filling a very similar, it's kind of scratching a very similar itch for me. But those are some other just really nice cymbals, you know?
yeah, oh, love them, man.
For sure.
Well, dude, I wanted to ask you, what are your plans for your drumming? Like, where do you see yourself in the next few years? Or maybe talk about some goals that you have around playing music and drumming.
My number one goal with drumming, just trying to say it as succinctly as I can, is to be able to be in a position where I can put as much into it as I want to. And right now, I wish I could put more into it, but, you know, I have to work.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the main thing. Like, you know, if I could get paid to practice 8 hours a day, then I totally would.
It'd be sick if there was like a billionaire out there that was just like, yeah, I'll pay this guy 40 grand.
This guy.
40 grand a year playing grindcore. Like, yeah, I can afford that. Which
that is
they
what I
can.
need. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think my goals are able to be realized. That goal, at least, is able to be realized if I keep practicing really, really hard and not, you know, being content, but not too content, you know, because if you're never content, then you're going to lose your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have some level of contentedness and satisfaction from the art you make.
Yeah.
There's like a sweet spot of having that and also pushing yourself that I try to remain in, you know. And at least with, like Knoll has been doing so well, and I'm earning more money individually as time goes on being in that band.
Fantastic.
And that's been like, objectively making it a lot easier for me to put more work into the music because that's, I'm being, I mean, a lot of times money equals time.
Yeah, I was just going to say the main thing that you're vying for is just time to spend with the music and with your instrument. Right? That's like the main currency that we have when we're young. We have a little bit more time, but when you get older, I feel like you need more money to sustain your because you try to level up your lifestyle as you get older. I would hope so. Yeah,
it's kind of harder. I imagine. Well, I mean, I've started to get old enough to feel a little bit more pain in my body and stuff.
Yeah,
it's a little harder to be like comfortable with discomfort. You know what I mean?
It is. Yeah. Okay, dude. So one thing that I forgot to ask you is, what would be the dream drum brand that you would want to work with if you could?
Definitely Pearl drums.
Okay. So why Pearl?
I have always used Pearl. My first kit was a Pearl Vision series.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a lot of fun to play on that. And I now use a Pearl Decade Maple series, which is very similar. It's just like maybe the hardware on it is a little bit nicer.
What are the sizes for that kit?
It's a 13, 14, 16, and then a 22-inch kick.
Okay.
Yeah. And my snare, I use a Pearl Reference Series snare, which I'm very fortunate.
Is that a wood snare or a metal snare?
It's brass, bell brass. Yeah,
Let's go,
super heavy.
dude.
It's a 6.5 inches by 14 inches. I'm a big fan of the brass kind of pingy dodgeball kind of sound.
Love that dodgeball tone.
Yeah, man. And it cuts really great on blast beats.
Yes.
Pearl Reference is
that's the top of the line, right?
Yeah, that's I've played on Pearl Reference shells before, and yeah, if I could have any kit, it would just be all Pearl References.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I've enjoyed hanging out with you, talking to you for the last couple hours. I wish you the best with all of your endeavors. I will definitely be at the Moru Knoll show. Panopticon. Yeah, that's going to be an awesome show. That'll be super fun. So, guys, thank you for watching. Thanks for being here for Shred Sessions. That's what we're calling the show from now on. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.